maybe it goes back to the equity issue. But listening to a lot of the input during the restructuring, I heard a lot of schools say they were willing to give up various programs in order to not have to restructure. And the crowds kind of went that way. But there were a few people in the back pulled me aside that did not agree with that, particularly people at St. Margaret Pollard and some other schools. So I guess my question is, do the principals have the flexibility to make program decisions? I mean, if Montcure wants 2 Spanish classes, but someone in South City does not, do the principals, are they able to tell you, hey, these are the programs we want with our funding, and other people have different funding? Would that be considered inequity, or is it something that we can look at?
I don't know if they have that flexibility or not.
We've got 2 experts here.
Right. Some areas, the principals do have the flexibility to determine how they will use the staffing that they receive. If a program is a county-wide, a district-wide program, such as Spanish, that's an example, then that would be one that if the board accepts the scenario that removes all of the Spanish positions, then the personnel would not be available for each school to then say, one school will offer it and another would not. The goal is to provide the same types of programs, art, music, health, physical education, band, career technical education. In the past, Spanish. Spanish is one that has been recommended to be discontinued. But then, at the middle school level, not at 9-12, at the middle school level. But then, once the positions are allocated, then the flexibility does exist for the principal to determine how they will use the positions in their daily schedule. But we have not allocated in the past in such a way that the schools, one school could offer a whole level of program services and another not. I don't know if I would make that, I don't feel I would make that recommendation to the board because it does create services in some places and not access to those services.
And essentially, the schools don't have enough positions to decide they're going to devote 2 of them to Spanish unless they're giving up something in the core curriculum. They just, in general, do not have that many positions to have that kind of flexibility.
Yeah, we have a state curriculum. The allocations of teachers, I mean, what we're going through is the allocations of teachers is very thin. And just what Deb said, there's not a lot of flexibility.
Again, I guess what I was thinking was, obviously the community school idea is very popular. I think that's the route that the county has decided to go. But with that, I guess it would be kind of nice if the individual community schools did have some more flexibility. I don't know what the law even allows, quite frankly, but I'm sure the principals would like more flexibility. So I don't know, just something to think about. Folks have asked me to ask today.
Honestly, our principals in our smaller community schools are very worried about how they're going to even make their curriculum, their core curriculum work with the state allotted teachers. I don't think flexibility is what they're wanting, it's more bodies. And I mean, we could give them all the flexibility in the world, but they're very concerned about how they're going to even schedule for all of their core classes. Because of the way teachers have to be certified on what they're teaching in the middle grades, the state does not allot based on subject area. They allot based on the whole number of students in a grade span in the county. And if you've got 3 classes, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes that have to be taught English by a certified English teacher, math by a certified math teacher, social studies by a certified social studies teacher, and science by a certified science teacher. As 4 subject areas, some of these schools may only have 3 or 4 teachers in their whole middle grade span. It's very hard to schedule as it is. I don't think flexibility is what they wish for so much as
But that also speaks to the fact that that's the reason we're concerned about making the cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. We're already at a deficit there, and any additional cuts we make needs to be far removed from the classroom. We need to find some way to do that.
Just a thought, and I don't mean to, Mike, I'm usually loud enough anyway, so, can we explain what we're doing at Moncure? Because that's a way, that's what they're asking, and that's already being done, am I correct on that?
Yes.
What instance of that, so let him explain so that you know what's going on there, and it makes sense anyway.
A part of the issue, and this goes back to the question about equity and why there's the imbalance, or what has happened to create the imbalance. And let me offer this as a preface, so before I actually get into Moncure, so everyone will understand. There's been questioning or challenging the per pupil expenditure figures that I presented to the board and used to determine the amount of funding. And Mr. Bach, you asked what I thought to be a very appropriate question. Are we talking about equity of funding or equity of service? Because as Ms. McManus answered, I can't tell you there's a school district in the state of North Carolina, let alone in the country, that has equity of funding because of what Mr. Petty pointed out. The different schools just require different things because of demographics and location. So we have to try to look at equalizing the services that we put into school so that the children, all the children in the school, receive an appropriate, acceptable level of the programming and services that we try to provide in the school district. And back to Mr. Petty's point, because there is an economy of scale, that's why schools are built in certain sizes. 500 to 600 is good for an elementary, 700 to 900 for middle, and 1,000 to 1,200 for high school. It's been determined by research that that's a good economy of scale to operate a school, where you can have the most efficient level of staffing, the most efficient level of services and programs provided to that number of children in that facility. When we have smaller schools, we don't have enough children to balance out the staffing. So we either have to allocate more staff into the schools so they can just build a schedule that's operational, and that's a part of what's happened over time. I don't think it was anything ill-intended. I don't think it was an effort to ignore some and give others more. Just over a period of time, some of the smaller schools received more in order to just help them operate so that they could function in a normal, acceptable daily routine. We've been cutting the budget now. This will be the third year. 11 teachers were cut from the 9-10 school year budget. And at that time, when that allocation adjustment was made, one of our schools, Moncure, decided, well, we'll look at how we organize our school a little bit differently. And rather than trying to have a teacher per grade or X number of teachers for X number of children, they went to something called multi-age grouping, where you could put multiple grades of children in the same classroom, still at or below the typical teacher-pupil ratio, but you might have a K. Multi-age grouping can go over 2 or 3 grades, and you would have kindergartners, first and second graders in the same classroom with one teacher, or you would have first and second graders, or second and third graders. So some used to call it combination classes, but this is different. What's different about multi-age and combination, you are truly just selecting 2 equal number of children from different grades to be in the classroom. Multi-age grouping, you are actually, there's professional development that the Moncure staff went through. They look at the curriculum differently and integrate and organize the curriculum in such a way that it's intended to challenge the higher grade as well as be acceptable to the lower grade child in the classroom. And they've made it work beautifully. The school has good test performance, good student performance at the school. The staff has accepted it and bought into it and are working with it. And they've been able to make it work with a smaller number of teachers. Now, that was a school choice. They opted to do that. We did not ask them to do it. It's worked well. Other schools do it that other schools around the state do it that don't have the same sort of problem. So it's an educational concept and not just a staffing, scheduling issue for some.
But could that not be one of the things considered when Mr. Bach asked about giving principals some flexibility? Is that not within their realm or their scope of decision making?
Oh, it was,
Okay.
yes.
That
Me.
principal driven.
Yes, they came and asked to do
They
that.
asked to do that.
So, yes, there was principal driven. So they are given that kind of flexibility if there's some way they want to use their staff differently.
I think that's probably where you were heading with the question when you asked them about flexibility.
Yeah, and also, I think also salary change with dual language programs is another area where that was school-led.
That was
School-led.